because I do think that we are made to identify beauty. I had
Mm.
Jeremy Treat on,
Oh,
and
good.
he mentioned the story of a couple who had no money. They were really low on
Mm.
their budget, and the husband came home, and in the vase at the dinner table
Mm.
was flowers,
Mm.
and he was frustrated. And she says, our souls are like, we don't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
because he's thinking food, shelter, and she's like, but our souls are starving for beauty
That's right.
too.
Yeah.
And I think there's
Yeah,
that
that's
aspect.
Makoto Fujimori. He talks about that. Yeah, that was his
Yeah.
wife. It was like they were starving artists, and
Oh, was
like,
it him that did it,
yeah,
Makoto?
who
Okay,
actually?
okay.
I mean, Jeremy's probably drawing on that, but it is a beautiful example of like these flowers feel so wasteful,
Mm-hmm.
but our souls need them,
Mm.
right? There is something about. Anyways, yeah, it's like, is walking in the woods ever when things are stressful? That's an inefficient thing, or painting or reading or sleeping or daydreaming, can any of these, but actually our souls need them. This is part of how God
Exactly.
made us.
That's why I told my wife, that's why God made you, because I need to see it,
Yeah,
beauty. And then
that's
she's like, but why did he make you? Because you're not beautiful.
yeah.
But you write this, you say, historians of architecture and social critics have long observed that taking efficiency to be the only criterion in the construction of buildings, especially housing, often has significant unintended consequences. Community housing with no positive aesthetic can actually suck the life out of those who inhabit that space. Beige wall after beige wall, prickly indoor outdoor carpeting, narrow hallways, low ceilings, few windows, and cold concrete covered outsides act like a lead blanket laid over the spirits of the inhabitants. Just as beauty feeds the souls of people who see it, the lack of beauty starves us of something that we have difficulty describing but keenly feel. Where is the life, the beauty, the loving process? That you didn't write that, your wife did, right? Is that
No, I did write that, but fair enough, fair enough. But you know what's funny is, you're reading, I've just struck because I had a particular building that we would walk by all the time when we lived in London, and that's just how it felt, and
Mm.
knowing people who live there. um yeah, yeah, that
Well,
wasn't just hypothetical.
when I was in Chicago, we had Cabrini
Yeah,
Green,
yeah, I was
and
just gonna say Cabrini Green is
yeah,
also, yeah,
it
yeah,
was like that. And but people think, oh, again, food, shelter, housing, what's the
yeah.
problem?
What's the problem? Yeah, if
What's the
it's all
problem?
concrete and it looks ugly and terrible, and yeah, it's fascinating. You've probably seen some of these studies where, and yet they've taken some areas with high crime and planted trees and cleaned up some things, and crime goes down. And you're like, what? It's trees and painted walls. Well, actually, it's there. These things affect us. Yeah, it's beauty, and it's reconnecting us with our humanity. That's the thing, because we're not robots. And to be a human is to be a creature, which actually then means to be in relationship with the rest of creation.
It's interesting, and I've referenced this story before on the show, but I remember being in a meeting with these other elders of a
Mm,
church, and someone suggested the facility was looking pretty poor, and it
mm,
had the beige walls everywhere,
right.
and someone said, well, let's paint it, let's paint, let's do some bright colors. And one of the pastors stops and goes, we'll never paint the church. And everybody kind of looked at him, and he said, we're going to give that money to missions.
Mm.
And everybody put their head down, and they're like, oh, this guy's so holy and
Yeah,
we're so fleshly. And one of the other pastors looks up and he goes, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
exactly.
He said, he's like, what do you mean? And he said, do you paint your house?
Yeah,
And the guy's like, yeah. He goes, then just paint the church. We're not trying to build the Sistine Chapel here. Make it look
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
In this
yeah.
idea of beauty. Now, neither one of these guys were people that I would say were fashion icons or into
Right,
architectural
right, right,
interior design,
right,
but I still think there was a principle that was being articulated without being explicitly said,
right.
that we have this desire.
Yeah,
And it's again part of our createdness,
yeah.
to want that beauty.